Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is a day like any other day when we have some interesting suspicions. I just got the weirdest error message that I've ever gotten, and I've never had it happen before, but I'll share with you what it said. Starting the output failed. Please check the log for details. Note, if you're using NVE, NC, or AMD encoders, make sure your drivers are up to date. I'm not using those encoders. I'm using an Apple encoder. Yeah, cool. Totally normal. We're 17 minutes behind schedule today because a stream failed to run. No particular reason why. But I will be giving you guys something that is going to get you amped up. I think we're going to go through the entirety of the pipe bomb saga from start to finish. So far, what we know, we're going to do a catch up. Steve Baker dropped a bombshell that apparently didn't hit some of you as hard as it should. I'll give you the bottom line up front. In the military and the law enforcement world, we talk about the bluff, the BLUF, the bottom line up front. The bottom line up front is yesterday Baker and Joe Hanneman, the Blaze, and Armitage, the single-named mysterious video analyst that they work with over on X, they put out a video that I would say eliminates any reasonable probability that the Capitol Police didn't know where the bombs were and that they only searched where the bombs would be found. And I'm going to go through that with you. We're also going to reveal something that has not been previously shown, as far as I know, anywhere. I'm not sure anybody else has this outside of a few people, members of Congress and a couple of journalists that haven't shared it yet. So you're going to get an exclusive here. I don't really do the exclusive thing, but I've got the Alex Jones clued up. We've got him on standby. We've got Dan Bongino standing by with the big nugget.
Morris gave up a big nugget.
The big nugget. We'll get those going as well. We're gonna break it down for you, and we're gonna make the case. We're also going to continue to live inside of members of the FBI's head. So those of you from the 7th floor, welcome to the program. Apparently, Julie Kelly, the official, unofficial spokesperson for the FBI's 7th floor, will also be listening in, as will her researcher, so that they can chop out pieces of this podcast and try to act like I don't know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, none of them have access to the information that the Blaze does or that I do, because none of you are in the loop, because you are all playing catch up, because you've been covering for a government agency that's been lying to the American people for 5 years. This was not a training exercise. This is not something you can just toss away to mistakes. This is a overt, very obvious, easily identified, something that should have been solved immediately, and it probably was. Until it was covered up. So, buckle up. I expect technology issues, I expect problems with the rest of the stream, and I expect you guys to understand where we're coming from. Let me give you a little tease up front.
This man is wanted for embarrassing the FBI. He is considered armed with facts which are dangerous to the director.
He was last seen living in this woman's head.
Authorities say he entered via a gate that was being analyzed.
We had our team put together this recreation of what it might look like in there.
Julie Kelly just sent me her classified documents viewer. Would you look at that? Nothing to see here.
This is outrageous!
Oh, well, isn't that something? We'd like to thank our team for putting that together for us. This man is wanted for...
So there we're going to go. We're going to run down the list of the fun things that need to be explored. We're going to cover things that you guys may not know already, and we're going to start with a read from one of our sponsors. So that's how we're going to do it right now, and those people are Patriot Protect. Maybe you don't want people like me to be able to find you online so easily, like I was able to find, I don't know, members of the Capitol Police, find their address, find their phone numbers, find the pictures of their houses on Google, which are blurred out. That's kind of weird to do. So if you guys don't want to be on those lists, if you want to stay away from cyber criminal scammers, investigative journalist types who just sit at their home and look for people who have done nefarious deeds over the years, Check out Patriot Protect. Patriot-Protect.com/KYLE. Again, it's Patriot-Protect.com/Kyle. They are scrubbing the web 24/7 of your personal information. They're making sure that it doesn't keep popping up on Google or the over 100 data broker websites. Data breaches can expose your sensitive information. There's nothing you can do about that. People can hack. Companies are careless and reckless with your stuff. But the people search websites, the data brokers are out there harvesting your address, your phone number, your family connections, your email, etc. Maybe your workplace. And it allows scammers to be able to pretend that they are you or that they know you in a real way, like they work for some company that actually does business with you, and scam money out of you. Any one of us could have that moment happen where we are distracted, somebody sounds plausible, we're got something else going on in our mind, and somebody catches us at a weak moment. Just keep your name out of the pile of possible leads for these scumbags so that you don't get taken. The odds are is that your cost per year, which is less than $100 when you use my name as a promo code, it's going to be far cheaper to have that sort of ounce of protection than the pound of cure. The average American loses about $600 per year to scammers and cyber criminals and these kind of frauds. So just don't make that be you. It won't be one time a year for $600. It'll be one time per decade for thousands of dollars, or maybe worse. Maybe your once in a lifetime scam where they take hundreds of thousands. And I hear about these things all the time. People actually reach out to me and ask me, hey, Kyle, what can I do? Well, right now it's too late. And you're probably too small of a victim for the FBI to even care about you. So you're kind of screwed up there. All right. We're going to get into today's program. Check out our sponsors in the link below. Again, it's patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Make sure you use the promo code. Let's get into today's program. Let's see who we piss off today, because it's going to be fun. All right. So there's a lady. She's not much of a lady, but she's a woman. I guess we could say that. There is a woman who's been on social media losing her ever-loving mind. Apparently, I live inside of her head, which is cavernous, and there's a big echo. And I'm going to give you kind of a quick little sample. And here is just a search of Julie_Kelly, the number 2, Kyle. This is not going to be all about this, but I just want you guys to understand. This woman is buddies with the director and the deputy director of the FBI and has been running cover for what they're doing. This is a story from February. This is like a couple of days after Kash Patel got in. News reporter Ryan Riley reports on the MSNBC audience of how Kyle Seraphin defended the Mar-a-Lago raid, something Dan said was indefensible, particularly the inclusion of the lethal force policy in the FBI's ops plan. Couple of problems with that. Number one, it's called the deadly force policy. It's not called the lethal force policy. And deadly force is a very specific term used in law enforcement, which Julie Kelly has absolutely no familiarity with. So I want you guys to understand that. Number two, anybody who's listening to me knows I never defended the raid. It's the first thing that I said, is that I was proudest of being removed from the FBI because I was not there when they raided Mar-a-Lago. I had already been removed. And yet, to claim that an ops plan would not have the deadly force policy, which uses FBI agents who have the deadly force policy in play when they're changing the diapers of their babies, who have the deadly force policy when they go to church. Because if you're an FBI agent and you're issued a firearm, you always have the deadly force policy in play. And you'd think that these guys, like maybe Dan and Kash, would know that now. But anyway, this is just kind of a little loop through the history of some of the silly things. Here you go. This is August of 2024. If you support Kyle Seraphin in any way, you're supporting a troubled man who hates women. You guys know from listening to my program. Obviously, that well describes me. Silly, silly, silly. More stuff about, this is a different Kyle here. Does Kyle Seraphin have any friends or loved ones who could check on him? A wellness check. This is truly personal for this woman. She's not okay. She hasn't been okay. And of late, what she's been doing is scrolling through, apparently, the podcast that you guys are listening to right now. And she just takes clips out of it and she freaks out. And she goes, oh my God, Seraphin and Steve Baker and the folks at The Blaze are destroying the narrative I have worked so hard to craft. They're making fun of things like gait analysis, which has been used to drone strike people overseas, conclusively finding that somebody does match up to the biometrics that we have on them. This is talking about The Blaze. This is talking about little clips of the podcast. You guys will recognize that. She says the story continues to unravel. Yeah, I've been doing teases because I know what's going on in the background. So stand by for this, because today's show is going to be kind of fun. Hardly a convincing endorsement of the Blaze Bomber follow-up, because I'm not going to say the woman's name. Well, let's start with the woman's name. This is Shani Kirkhoff. And she's on the right, and she's wearing a bib for the Boston Marathon, which she ran in, I think, April of 2018. And she did a pretty studly run. She did it in about 8 minutes per mile. That's pretty studly. That's way more studly than I can run. And she's a marathon runner of, I'd say of competence, of capability. She qualified and she ran Boston in the rain, no less. And she's wearing a gray hoodie. And on the left is the unknown subject known as Person of Interest 1 to the FBI. We punched it into some simple AI recognition tools, which said not sort of, but conclusively that they were the same thing. You guys can blame Grok over on X. When we punch this in, it says this is the same person. It has the same waist to shoulders ratio, has the same stance, has the same hand dominance. You'll notice that a thing in the right hand and a thing in the right hand has the same sloped shoulders, and generally speaking, holds the same body posture. There's even a cocking of the hip that you can see if this was a slightly wider picture. That's what Grok says. Now, I think it's interesting that Steve Baker was able to identify a female Capitol Police officer who fits the exact same height, has the same right leg drag, which is to say a limp on the right-hand side from a soccer injury that is well documented for this woman, who was in the proximity of the U.S. Capitol, who has all of the connections to the law enforcement entity that investigated the bomb, and we're going to drop something on you that is absolutely mind-numbing, who's been living with another Capitol Police officer, and there he is there. His name is Dan Dickert. Dan Dickert is someone who has requested a Capitol Police security detail because he is so concerned. If you notice, this is them also doing running. Apparently, he's a runner too. They have very similar builds. You'll notice the beard. He has kind of a very specific type of nose. More on that in 1 second. But this is after they ran, I think, the Hershey Half Marathon. And they did a request. They did a petition to try to reinstate the Hershey, Pennsylvania half marathon, which was discontinued for some reason. So she's not just part of the Capitol Police. She's not just someone who's a stud runner. She's the right size. And most interestingly, she is not just working for the Capitol Police. At the time, she was in fact living with someone who was a Capitol Police officer. Now, why is that interesting? It's interesting because the person that Steve Baker identified, the person on the left there on this picture, Shawnee Kirkhoff was living next to Person of Interest 3 and Person of Interest 2 that the FBI investigated in January of 2021, about a week after the pipe bombs were discovered. And it's worse than that, because not only did they discover 2 pipe bombs, they discovered them in what I would call absolutely record time. The Capitol Police discovered pipe bombs in about 20 minutes in the middle of a riot that was going on with minimal personnel, and they did so like taking a hole-in-one. They followed the direct trail from a car to the only bush that Person of Interest 1, the pipe bomber, stopped at for several minutes, or several seconds rather, like 30, 45 seconds, and then apparently tried to place the bomb, but moved it, and then went direct to the other location where the pipe bomber stopped that night, which was a bench outside the DNC. In under 12 minutes from deployment, 2 United States Capitol Police officers on their counter surveillance teams were deployed direct to threat, and they didn't go wandering around looking at the countless numbers of bushes, the thousands and thousands of bushes that exist in Washington, D.C. No, they left their car and they made a beeline for the direct place that the pipe bomber had attempted to place the bomb the night before near the Congressional Black Caucus building, the Institute for the Congressional Black Caucus. And then, after looking under that bush, not once, but twice, first on a pass-by, second on a full look, a head under, then this pair walked directly over to the DNC and sat down at the bench, saw the bench where the actual pipe bomb was eventually found in about 2 minutes. So they course corrected and they moved hundreds of feet away directly to where the pipe bomb was placed. And then they notified a United States Secret Service officer and somebody from DC Metro. And then those people didn't react. We don't know why they don't react. Somebody says it could be a training exercise. Let me debunk the training exercise right now. In order for this to be a convincing training exercise, they would have had to do the thing where everybody goes out and says, exercise, exercise, exercise. That is the headline that you put on the email. And then it goes out to all the possible equities, all the law enforcement people in the area. You do that so that somebody doesn't think that there's a pipe bomb hanging out trying to kill the Vice President of the United States, the Vice President-elect, people who were just walking by, a bus full of nuns, children down on a field trip in Washington, D.C. You make sure that people understand that this is not a live device and therefore there is no threat to the public. So you don't have to shut down the cordon that you would normally do. You don't have to establish a minimum safe distance, although you might do that as part of the exercise. You don't stop all the trains from running. How did they get away with that? And then the biggest reason that we know that this was not an exercise is because the FBI would have found that out in seconds. They would have queried the Capitol Police. They would have queried the various different law enforcement entities that were involved in it. And they would have said, hey, did you have a training exercise going on? And they would have said, oh my God, we did. We totally blew it. Sorry about that. We don't need you to spend 5 years, put a $500,000 reward up, and use all the investigative resources that I'm about to cover down on. You don't need to do that. It was one of us. We were just either playing a prank or testing our dogs or making sure that our bomb sniffers were doing the job. We know that that's nonsense. And apparently, the United States Capitol Police officers who were identified by Steve Baker and his team should be replacing the bomb sniffing dogs because rather than walking around randomly and sniffing, they just know where bombs are and go directly to those bombs. That's going to be the case we make. And then I'm going to show you something else. The 3 people that the FBI identified as persons of interest very early on were listed as follows. Person of interest 1, that's the pipe bomber. Person of interest 2, who we're told is an out-of-town guest who was a childhood friend and then reconnected on social media and then stayed with person of interest 3 on the day of January 6th. Okay? Pipe bomber, out-of-town guest, person of interest 3, owns a townhouse in Falls Church. Here's the weird thing. I was watching person of interest 3. So was my security team, my surveillance team from the Bureau. So we were watching the person who owned the house, and apparently we were trying to identify person of interest 2. I've made it very clear to you, I think the FBI cross-contaminated their streams. I think the person of interest 2 that they were looking for was not in fact the out-of-town guest, but they caught the wrong person on security camera footage. And that may actually implicate person of interest 3, but we'll have to see. There's a lot of unanswered questions. But what I am going to show you is who person of interest 2 is. The FBI identified this person with a photograph. And that came through whistleblower disclosures that no one else has. It went to members of Congress. There's a couple of journalists that have not done anything with it. I'm going to share it with you, and I'm going to ask you some questions. And most what I want you to know, I want you to answer for me is person of interest 2 that I'm going to show you in just a little bit, is that a 60-something-year-old white male who's 5'10", 5'11"? Or does it look like somebody else that we see? Just so you guys remember who this woman is, the woman that was identified by the Blaze, Shawnee Kirkhoff, there she is. This is her in 2016 from her now deleted Twitter feed. You'll notice she has no social media. She has no Instagram, even though she was a professional sports player. And she had an Instagram account. She had a Twitter account. And I can find some of it in the Wayback Machine. It's in the Internet Archives. This is one of those things. Federal police officer, Shawnee Kirkhoff, Washington, D.C., Temple Women's Soccer, class of 2016. Quote, Temple's rich diversity has helped better prepare me to serve the diverse communities of Washington, D.C. as a federal police officer with understanding, patience, and compassion for all. This came as part of the NCAA's Diversity and Inclusion Week at Temple University. And there she's standing with Chuck Grassley. We're not afraid of saying somebody's name. The questions are legitimate. The pattern is ridiculously, absurdly, statistically improbable. How do you put an FBI surveillance team outside the door of the neighbor of 2 Capitol police officers who were identified, one of whom was identified as having the same gait, having the same height, having the same everything, and actually tracked by an investigative journalist team 5 years later to be the person they believe is the pipe bomber? How does that happen? And the answer is, I don't think it does. By the way, these are not the same sweatshirts. If you're just listening right now, you're missing out on some visuals that you should be part of. So you should probably join us over on Spotify. It's very easy to do. It's free for you. KyleSerafinshow.com will give you the hyperlink. We had some issues yesterday because Cloudflare was down. It wouldn't let us upload them. So now yesterday's is up. Today's is up. If you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on X, make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you like this post. You can subscribe to the channel or follow it, whatever the term is, wherever you are. If you want to support us, $50 a year makes you an insider over at Locals, and that is at KyleSeraphin.com, not to be confused with KyleSeraphinShow.com, which is where you find the Spotify piece. So, I'm going to show you another couple things. One of the contentions of the Blaze Media team is that the pipe bomb that was placed next to the DNC was broken. It was broken in its first set down when it was put down somewhere, and then it was recovered and a piece of it was missing. Potentially an alligator clip is the claim. This is the FBI's unclassified, disseminated by John Solomon bit, and you'll see that I have a green circle. There's a connective there that should have some kind of a clip, some kind of a splicing device. You'll notice that there's alligator clips on the right-hand side over by the timer. There's something that should have been there. Some sort of electrical device that tied the 9-volt power supply to the end cap with the priming hole so that it could actually make it in to this inert device, which did not have flammable powder. Device number 2, which was actually blown up, actually did have, or it was, detonated in some way, shape, or form, and it was all much more beat up. It actually did have black powder that would go off, but it doesn't seem like it was that powerful. This is what Armitage believes may have been left behind under the bush outside of the Congressional Black Caucus. So we're going to do a timeline for you guys because I think that's relevant. I think it's helpful. And let's go straight to the Loudermilk Report, which was released in January of 2025. So here we go. All right. This is a radio transmission. Let me get oriented on this. It says, after the RNC security guard approached a United States Capitol Police officer that was stationed at the intersection of 1st Street and C Street and showed the officer a picture of the pipe bomb, the U.S. Capitol Police officer immediately notified U.S. Capitol Police Dispatch at 12:42 p.m. of a possible pipe bomb behind the Capitol Hill Club. This one is known as the RNC bomb, the Capitol Hill Club bomb. The officer stated over the radio, quote, I had the head of security of the Republican Club come to me, and he has what appears to be an explosives in ... the back of the building. Can you have some units respond? At 12:46 p.m., okay, just before 1 p.m. on January the 6th, USCP units responded to the scene and began blocking off the surrounding streets and established an incident command post. This is what you would expect they would do. The timing of this is very critical. The questions that are trying to debunk this story involve things like, hey, what about a 911 call that reported where the DNC bomb is? That didn't happen. What about radio calls that were directing these guys because they were looking into the security camera footage and they found the place the person had stopped the night before? That also didn't happen. Steve Baker has been listening to these radio calls for over 3 years. He has all of the radio, all the transmissions for U.S. Capitol Police on that day. Shortly after the discovery of the pipe bomb near the RNC, that's the Capitol Hill Club RNC bomb, that's bomb number 1, we're going to call it, 3 U.S. Capitol Police counter-surveillance units, and each unit comprised of 2 United States Capitol Police plainclothes officers, okay, so 6 total USCP officers, deployed to the surrounding area to search for similar devices. One of these units headed towards the DNC. Well, they didn't just head towards the DNC, as I'm going to show you in a second. They went directly to the bush where the pipe bomber had sat down the night before. And I have that footage for you guys. I ripped it out so you can watch it, and we'll just walk through it. At approximately 1:05, we're now 20 minutes away from the discovery of the first bomb. One of the USCP counter-surveillance unit teams identified an explosive device near a bench on the west side of the DNC building and notified the DC Metro Police Department and a United States Secret Service agent who was sitting in a nearby vehicle. 2 minutes later, one of the USCP counter-surveillance unit officers told the U.S. Capitol Police Dispatch of the pipe bomb at the RNC in the following: 10-100 at the DNC as well. A similar device that was found at the RNC as well, advising the units are on scene what's going on. I'm not clear how they know it was a similar device. It's not clear to me that they actually described it as, pipe bomb, 12 inches, 8 inches, whatever it was, 10 inches in length, end caps, kitchen timer. I'm not sure that went out. So we'll have to ask Steve Baker when we get a chance to query him. But it's interesting because that seems like a very specific thing to say that it is similar. You could say another device, but a similar device means that you have some knowledge of what it looked like. And maybe they did. Maybe that's in the radio transmission. But what they do not say in this little paragraph is one unit, which was 2 officers, deployed from their car, which was parked at the Capitol South Metro Station, went directly to the same bush that the pipe bomber had gone to the night before, stayed there, looked twice, and then went directly to the place where the bomb finally ended up. And I'm going to show you that footage right now. So what you're seeing is a night scene. It's about 7:45 p.m. as far as I can remember. And this is person of interest 1, who the Blaze believes is Shani Kirkhoff, the Capitol police officer, female that I showed you not long ago, wearing the hood. On the left-hand side, you see an inset, which is blown up, 7:47 and 24 seconds p.m. That is stopping at the bush. On the right-hand side, you see the bush in daylight. On the lower right-hand side, you see the regular size of the actual image. This is out on social media now as well. I put it out there for you as well. You can see the circle and the lightened version of it. Again, the bush is shown on the top right in daylight, so you can see the arrow. This is where the person of interest 1 pipe bomber sits down and goes through a backpack. So now we have cars passing, someone sitting on the ground, probably not very visible at that distance. This is obviously a security camera footage, which is blown out. So it's been, saturated to be able to handle night. And you see this person reaching under the bush right now, lifting the bush and placing it. Looks like right hand going underneath the bush. It's fun to see that there's a traffic light that's like life's happening all around. Light goes through all the cycles. All right. Now we're adjusting a hood, it looks like, maybe putting the backpack back on. And now we're standing up. So now we have person of interest 1, the pipe bomber, getting onto feet and walking off screen to the right. All right. Now we move to January the 6th. This is at 1:01. This is 4 minutes before the pipe bombs were discovered. And we have our 2 U.S. Capitol police officers who walk by with their head tucked down, looking at that bush. They're going to stop behind that exact same traffic light, which was blurring out the screen earlier. You've got U.S. Capitol Police blocking streets. There's people that are wandering around. They've got name tags on. These guys also look kind of cop-like too, right? They're all kind of looking in different places. Our counter surveillance units are hidden right now behind that sign and that traffic light. And you can see them poke out a little bit on the left side now. Now we're going to see them turn and they go back towards the bush. And as you look, he's going to stop. He's going to put his head down and he's going to look under the exact bush where the pipe bomber was the night before. To me, this is proof positive that we have now implicated the Capitol police officers in knowing where to look. They specifically went to the only bush that the pipe bomber stopped at that whole night. You guys get how crazy that is? Back to the summary here. A few minutes later, that same unit, those 2 guys, walked over to the DNC and said 10-100 at the DNC as well. Similar device was found at the RNC as well, advising the units on scene what's going on. Meanwhile, additional United States Capitol Police began responding to the DNC. U.S. Secret Service agents and MPD officers exited their vehicles after finishing their lunch, by the way, and began searching for the explosive device. Around the same time, USCP began evacuating the Cannon office building. That's the House office building and the James Madison Memorial building at the Library of Congress. These 2 buildings were closest to the RNC, bomb number 1. Bomb number 2 was found by someone who went directly to the same bush. There's the bomb again. This one's missing parts. The claim is that there were parts left underneath that bush, like a little sort of indicator. So let's go back to the story as it was published in January. Here we go. I'm now showing you on screen from the Loudermilk. This is their description that they had from the FBI's investigation. On January the 19th, 2021, FBI agents interviewed person of interest 2 and ultimately eliminated this person as a person of interest. According to the summary of the interview obtained by the committee, the FBI learned that person of interest 2 traveled to Washington, D.C. to attend First Amendment protected activities, which apparently were some sort of Christian gathering, on January the 5th. And throughout that day, person of interest 2 photographed objects bearing numerals, including doors, dumpsters, and other objects intended to be used in a book that he was writing. The FBI reviewed POI 2's phone, and photographs appeared to corroborate his story. However, the interview summary does not elaborate on how that case team verified his story. There's a couple of these, like it's unclear how they came to this conclusion. What's also interesting is that by February of 2021, this was just after my team was pulled off, the FBI identified 186 phone numbers They were of interest and they were derived from the FBI's analysis of the geofence warrant, that's probably a Google warrant, and a cell phone tower dump. According to internal documents that were obtained by the subcommittee, 36 of the phone numbers were assigned to agents for interviews. 98 of them were requiring additional investigative steps. So maybe they pulled like some additional toll records, or maybe they went out there and got additional warrants or subpoenas. 51 of these phone numbers were identified as, quote, not needing further action, end quote, because the phones, quote, belonged to law enforcement officers or persons on the exclusion list, end quote. That's what we would refer to as an underlying assumption. What is an underlying assumption? That's a thing that you believe when you start your investigation. If your underlying assumption is that there are no law enforcement officers that were involved in this, and we are therefore going to rule out law enforcement officers' cell phones in the area, it would be really problematic if later on you found out that there was an allegation or information that law enforcement officers may be in on it. And again, the video that you are seeing on the screen, I do not know how else you explain this. There's no easy way to say that this pipe bomber person, who you're seeing again on the screen in full screen, walked directly to the bush. There's the bush in daylight. Again, top right. You see it? I'm going to skip ahead in the video. Boom. Now we move where? On the day of. There's that same bush. And the officers walk right by it. And then we skip ahead. And here they come walking again. And you're going to see him creep out from behind that sign. And he's going to tuck his head down. Here he goes. Look for it. Up, stop, pivot, lean, look. What are we doing here, people? What are we doing with this look? What does that tell us? To me, that says you know where to look. I expect something to be there. It's the only bush they stopped at. Steve Baker and company, including Armitage and Joe Hanneman, reviewed the entire walk from car to here, and they didn't stop any other time. They didn't double back. They didn't go and say, maybe we should check on this building. They did not deviate. They went a straight line and they went directly here. And in under 12 minutes from deploying from their cars, they were able to identify the exact two locations that the pipe bomber, person of interest 1, stopped at. How do you make that assumption? This video footage, to me, as a former federal investigator and a currently just generally suspicious person who has a functioning cerebrum, I believe one thing. This conclusively links the Capitol Police Department with somebody who placed the bombs. There's no other way to explain it. They were faster than bomb dogs. They were faster than professional security teams that the EOD technicians use with the Secret Service. They went directly like bloodhounds to a place where the bombs had been attempted to drop and then were physically actually dropped, and they did so in under 12 minutes. We're going to do Steve Baker's story in just a second. Before we do, allow me to plug my friends and our sponsors at Patriot Coolers. That's what we do here. Part of it is we keep your attention, and then we tell you stuff that we like to, that you, if you want to buy, this is what to do. It's Christmas coming up. This is a great company you can look into. This is my very handsome and matching, by the way, it matches the exterior of the set here. It's a Patriot cooler. This is a 20 ounce. It's a great size. When you have the 30 ounce, you're like, yeah, I need more. Actually, I have a 30 ounce right here too. You're like, I need bigger. And then guess what? Then you're like, oh, the small one is kind of handy too. It's great for coffee. That's what's got it right now. Spill-proof lids, screws on. You get 10% off using my name, KYLE. PatriotCoolers.com is the website if you guys want to get one that's engraved like the one I just showed you a second ago. Or if you want to check out some of their bigger stuff, fantastic. They make a backpack that can carry things. If you're a mom on the go and you want to carry snacks for your kids that you don't want to melt, or you don't want to get destroyed by some sort of thermal outcome. If you guys want to carry your own lunch, maybe you work with like a construction type job and you need to be able to throw something over your back along with a tool belt or a box of tools. Yeah, check out Patriot Coolers. The backpacks, the hard side, the soft side. I've given some to my buddies who are working men who are out there in the world earning a living. Everybody likes them. They're a great product. They're easy to get behind. They didn't change their prices, even though they got hit with some tariffs on things, because a lot of their stuff has to be imported, particularly these things. You can't even make these in America, unfortunately, because of our EPA regulations. They're out there getting it done, and they're based out of Houston, Texas. They ship really quickly. They have a patriotic lean, and they also support veterans, and they support our program. The Kyle Seraphin Show is like, I think we're their only they're the only ones that they sponsor. Anyway, check them out. Link in the show description. PatriotCoolers.com, promo code KYLE. Let's get back into some of this stuff here. Let's see what else we've got for you. All right. The FBI, here's the beginning of the story. You guys want to go from the beginning of who are these persons of interest? I talked about it a second ago. I'm going to double back. We're going to make sure you understand. The FBI initially identified multiple persons of interest. Again, they are persons of interest 1, 2, and 3. Person of interest 2 was most interesting to them. Person of interest 1 is the actual pipe bomber, and they've been unable to figure out who this person is. Okay? The documents obtained by the subcommittee says that person of interest 2, on the morning of January 5th, 9 hours before the suspected pipe bomb explosive devices were planted, was captured photographing dumpsters next to the location of the RNC pipe bomb, which was later found. After taking pictures of the dumpster, person 2 walked around the Capitol complex, met with 2 unidentified subjects, and returned down the same alley. If you guys don't know, if you're following people on security cameras and they're wearing anything close to the same color, it's difficult, especially because they come in from different angles and you're at different distances. You're going to watch somebody walk out and they're 2 inches tall on your screen, and then walk in and they're from a long shot and they're only like 3 millimeters tall. It's difficult. You got to be a pro. I guarantee you that there's no specialized training that the FBI has on tracking people. It's just experience-based. Most people don't ever do this. I've had to do this with running through cameras at one point. I'll just kind of break away. I did cameras tracking a vehicle through Washington, D.C., and they were involved in robbing a armored truck. Really difficult because I had no background in it, and we had crappy software, and we weren't set up to be able to handle this. These are not like dedicated terminals where you have the best stuff. This is like your crappy FBI government terminal that crashes whenever you try to pull up a Word document. In any case. All right. As I told you guys long time ago, even with the Daily Wire, person took the pictures and then entered the Capitol South Metro Station. That turns out to be the same exact metro station where these counter surveillance agents for Capitol Police parked. The person of interest 2 rode the Metro to Falls Church, Virginia, just as I had said. The agents assigned to the team determined that POI 2 used an Uber account and a Metro card that was registered to a separate individual, POI 3, who my team surveilled because he was the one who owned the house. And that person, POI 3, just happened to live next door to Shani Kirkhoff, which nobody can explain to me. According to internal emails obtained by the subcommittee, the FBI's team considered POI 2's movements to be highly suspicious and considered POI 2 as a possible accomplice to the pipe bomber. Should we do a breaking exclusive right now? That seems like what we should do. Let's see if we can break this out for you.
Breaking exclusive. Breaking exclusive. Breaking exclusive.
All right. Are you properly prepped for the exclusive? Because no one has shown this before. I showed you Dan the little man, who is Shani Kirkhoff's actual partner in life, not like we're talking about like a Kash Patel scenario where you've been dating somebody you don't live in the same place. They live together, and apparently they have for several years. All right? That's Dan the man, the little man. He's a Capitol Police officer, Dan Dickert, and Shani Kirkhoff. Person of interest 2 was the person that the FBI was interested in. Closest to me on the screen right now is person of interest 2 as identified by the FBI on January 13th. They sent out that picture. It's grainy. It's obviously a capture from a video. It doesn't look like it's a high definition picture of any kind. And the question is who is this person? On the right is Dan Dickert. I'm asking you a question because I've looked at this and I don't know the answer. And maybe you do from looking at it, or maybe you have an opinion on it and you're allowed to have that opinion in America. The guy on the right is the boyfriend of Shani Kirkhoff. The guy on the left is the FBI's person of interest 2. Does the person that is on the left, the one that is closest to me, wearing a hood and using his right hand to hold a cell phone, is that man a 60-something-year-old white man who's 5'10", 5'11", as described by person of interest 3? What do you think? I'm going to go to the chat. Nobody has seen this before because this came out of FBI surveillance documents. As far as I can tell, the case team was working on this. What I recognize is a particular nose. I recognize a dark beard. The general shape of the way that the bottom part near the goatee cuts in. They look very similar to me. I used to do this for a living. It doesn't mean that they are the same. It means I'm asking you a question. Is the person that is closest to me on this screen a 60-something-year-old man? Anybody think that's the case? What do you say, y'all? It's hard for me to believe that that person is over 60 years old. So is it more likely that the FBI cross-contaminated and got the wrong person as they were following? Or is it more likely that they actually interviewed the proper person of interest too, and that person just happened to be 60-something years old and was an out-of-town friend? I'm going to go to the Daily Wire story right now. Are you ready? You guys saw the picture. The man who owned the Metro card that law enforcement believed was linked to the person of interest, that's POI 2, spoke with the Daily Wire. The man who owned the Metro card is POI 3, and saying that it was not his neighbor who used the transit card, but in fact a friend of his. The man, who's an Air Force veteran, requested anonymity. I know his name. I've known it for years. He has a very conservative profile on social media. No big deal. The report said computerized gate analysis suggested the person who planted the pipe bombs at the DNC and the RNC was a Capitol police officer, a particular Capitol police officer who later shot non-lethal or less than lethal rounds at protesters. This theory gained secondary support from the fact that she lived next door to someone who law enforcement had separately already landed on and was curious about. Person of interest 3 lived directly next door to person of interest 2, and apparently person of interest 3 lived next door to Shawnee Kirchhoff. And person of interest 2 supposedly lived with person of interest 3 at that time. Again, is this a 60-something-year-old man that you're seeing in the picture or not? That's the question. Daily Wire confirmed with law enforcement that a particular Falls Church, Virginia man's Metro card was linked to that case and that the Capitol police officer was in fact his neighbor, literally sharing a wall with him. We went on to the address. We interviewed the man, and he said it was his understanding that the neighboring unit was in fact occupied by 2 Capitol police officers, who in turn, we've already named them. It was Shawnee Kirchhoff living next door and Dan Dickert, who's still a sergeant in the U.S. Capitol Police, as I understand it today. And the female told him her romantic partner was on the force too. In other words, they both were there and that there was a romantic relationship between them, which makes sense. It sounds like they've been together for a while. This was in 2020. He says he does not believe that his Metro card, again, this is POI3 speaking, was used by the police officer on January the 5th. He told the Daily Wire it was used by a childhood friend who traveled from the South to attend Trump's rally and stayed with him to save money. The Air Force vet let him borrow his card and picked him up at the Metro station after the rally. Both men are Trump supporters, he said. About a week later, in 2021, he got a call from law enforcement, who he believes was the Metro Transit Police. I've never heard of Metro Transit Police clearing anybody for anything. If this person was on the FBI's JTTF, I imagine that was either a ruse or that person was working with the FBI, but I've never heard of a telephonic interview ending surveillance. But that's what apparently happened. He was asked about who used the card, and this Metro Transit Police officer asked the question, and then they discontinued our surveillance, apparently. Former FBI employee Kyle Seraphin told The Wire 2 years ago that he was assigned to stake out the address because the FBI believed the person of interest in the bomb case swiped through the gates using a card owned by the man. All of that's true. The Air Force veteran is a tall black man, and he immediately gave the police the name of his friend, who's a white man, about 5'10", 5'11". The vet is 66 years old, making his friend about the same age. So that was 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago. Is this person 61 or 62 years old is the question. I'm just asking it again because the question is very, very specific. And this is exactly why I've always asked the question about what the FBI was doing on that day. I don't get it. I don't know where they crossed their wires. Now, the FBI did scramble into action, folks. They sure did. And they wanted to clear this up so that you don't have any questions. And they went directly to Barry Loudermilk, who wrote that report that we've been reading from. And he wrote, this information fills in some of the blanks that the previous administration had refused to provide about the pipe bomb investigation. Thank you, FBI and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, for your quick and transparent response and continued partnership in getting to the truth on these issues. But my question to you is, does this actually get to the point of it? This is what the FBI released after Steve Baker's story. Photographer person of interest. Now identified as person of interest B, not person of interest 2. But apparently the FBI claims they're the same person from those documents. The FBI identified a person of interest, POI-B, Bravo, walking near the RNC and taking pictures on January 5th, then entering the Capitol South Metro Station, departing a Metro Rail in a vehicle. The FBI conducted database checks on the smart trip and found that POI-B obtained the WMATA records associated with POI-B's movements on January 5th. Surveillance activities identified a similar vehicle was parked at a residential address identified from the WMATA records. The FBI determined that POI-B was staying at that address. Again, this is the friend staying from out of town, apparently. However, they were not the owner of the address. In January 2021, the FBI interviewed the owner of the residence, as stated here. The FBI says they interviewed him. He says it was a transit cop. My guess is this is JTTF. That's not really an inconclusive piece. The owner stated that POI-B was a friend, that they allowed POI-B to stay with them for the January 6th rally. The owner provided POI-B their smart card to use while POI-B was in Washington, D.C. In January 2021, they interviewed this person and confirmed that they were attending a rally. So they interviewed person of interest B. All I want to know is, and it should be really easy, did POI-B, aka POI-2, look like the person that is sitting next to me that the FBI was looking into 1 week after January 6th? That's all I want to know. And you should want to know too. And the FBI should actually want to answer that question. POI-B attended rallies at the Capitol and the Supreme Court. POI-B confirmed that they did go to the RNC and took pictures in the area, but did not go to the DNC. POI-B was taking pictures of number plates for a book that they were writing, and POI-B allowed the agents to view the photographs on their cell phones, which appeared to be images of numbers and residential buildings near the RNC. Guys, what are they not saying? Because there's a lot of information here that seems like it is being left out. Can I go to Steve Baker's story? Here's what he wrote. So when you see people out there debunking this in real time, this is what they're trying to debunk. The police walked right past the DNC bomb to look under a bush where the pipe bomber had sat 17 minutes earlier. I've presented you with the video footage. In fact, I will leave it on the screen while we talk. The search under a shrub at the Congressional Black Caucus Institute happened 2 minutes before one of the officers discovered the pipe bomb at the nearby DNC on January the 6th, 2021. An 8-inch long steel pipe with end caps, a kitchen timer, a 9-volt battery, and various wires was planted in plain sight under the bench at the DNC. Somehow it escaped the notice of 2 U.S. Capitol Police officers who walked right past it 15 minutes prior after a dispatcher warned the pipe bomb was found at the nearby RNC building. These plainclothes counter-surveillance officers instead proceeded straight to the Congressional Black Caucus Institute, which was a few hundred feet to the east of the DNC. One of them stopped at a large bush. Again, the bush is on the screen. Along the alley that led up to New Jersey Avenue. At 1:03 p.m., the officer backed up and ducked and peered under the shrub, as I described to you earlier. After a brief pause, he stood back up and he continued on the return trek to the DNC, and that's where he discovered the second pipe bomb 2 minutes later. These 2 bushes are the only ones the officers are seen looking at in the 11 minutes and 14 seconds that they're captured on available surveillance footage. What was the significance of this bush? What was so significant that allowed them to look? Why did it warrant their specific attention, and why has the FBI never disclosed this detail? Steve Baker asks. In a new review of video footage that shows the Capitol Police officer stopped at the exact bush, a new review of video footage shows that the officer stopped at the exact same bush, which 17 hours earlier, previously released footage shows the hoodied pipe bomber sitting in front of, as I showed you guys. At 7:48, January the 5th, the suspect spent 1 minute and 17 seconds near that exact same bush. 1 minute and 17 seconds. It's the only stop during the day. We have our pipe bomber sitting there in the dark for some period of time, bent over, then sitting in front of the shrub. The subject rummages through a backpack while sitting cross-legged, leans into the bush, appears to place or attempt to place something underneath it. The subject stood up after 77 straight seconds and then walked to the DNC building. And there, POI-1, the pipe bomber, sat on the park bench and at 7:54 p.m. placed a bomb in the adjacent bush. The video released by the FBI has shown that part. We tracking? In a matter of 7 minutes earlier in the afternoon, the U.S. Capitol Police CSU team visited the two venues, which were the same that the pipe bomber did the night before, in the same order that the pipe bomber did the night before. And while their assigned task was to search for explosives at potential targets around Capitol Hill, the only locations that can be seen on camera are them searching the Congressional Black Caucus Institute bush and the bush by the DNC bench where they eventually found and reported the second pipe bomb. Again, the only two places the pipe bomber stopped are the only two places the Capitol Police officers stopped. You guys tell me the probability that that happens without anything else intervening. Are these people like human divining rods for pipe bombs? Was this providence in God's hand guiding them to the bush to look at where it would have been if it had been, but then taking them to the place where it actually was? Or did they go to the primary and then the alternate site? The significance of the the Congressional Black Caucus Institute bush could not have been known to those police officers midday on January the 6th. The reason is Steve Baker has reviewed the video and the audio and found out that nobody called these guys and said, go look at that bush. Nobody sent them there directly. They went there of their own volition. We call that sua sponte. On their own accord, they went directly to the bush the pipe bomber had been at for 77 seconds the night before. This is a direct tie of Capitol Police to the person that is the pipe bomber, and that makes it even more crazy that they ended up at the door right next to the people that we thought and we were looking into. And again, you guys are going to have to tell me what you think. Did the FBI's person of interest too look like a 60-something-year-old man? The pipe bomber's first visit to the first bush and a possible attempt to plant the devices there was one of many details the FBI has never divulged, or they've never even acknowledged it. All right? It's not in the recent release to Loudermilk either. The discovery was made by an independent video investigator known only as Armitage. I'll put his name and his handle out on X later on today. Again, you guys should be following this person, who spent more than a year examining the details of the January 6th bomb case. The Blaze has agreed not to print his legal name for security reasons. He was actually involved in briefing members of the U.S. Congress about this problem, and he presented basically like 26 pages of his findings. He's spoken with congressional and FBI investigators concerning the findings that he has. He alleges that the Biden FBI, I'd say it's the same FBI, digitally manipulated the video of the alleged pipe bomber before releasing it to the public. The Bureau also left out major details in its public disclosure, such as the Congressional Black Caucus Institute bush and the alleged bomber's visit to the front garden of the Congressional Rooming House on C Street near the Capitol Hill Club. There was a primary and apparently an alternate location for both bombs. Bomb number one, which was found at the RNC, was actually first, looks like there was a stop in front of this bush in the front gardens of the Congressional Rooming House. It's like a boarding house for members of Congress and staffers near the Capitol Hill Club. This new wrinkle in the case only adds more intrigue. This is a long-solved mystery. This is not a training exercise, people. You cannot justify that. How could officers have been dispatched to look for explosives and then specifically only gone to the place where they went, but they actually walked past the place where it actually was? They walked past the DNC at 12:58 p.m. They found the bomb something like 5 or 6 minutes later. The discovery happened at 12:43. And here's where it gets really interesting. The guys went to the Metro South lot, like I told you. They got their emergency lights on. They were easy to spot on the video cameras. They tracked them all the way, they being Steve Baker. If you guys, we're going to go over to the, let me go over here. This is the route of travel that the police officers took. Up here on the right-hand side of the screen is the Capitol South Metro. And this is their walk. It's like this. They walked right past where the bomb was, okay? And then they rolled over here to the Congressional Black Caucus Institute over here on the right-hand side of the screen. And then they backtracked in this green and they ended up here. Here's a better look at it. Here is their route. This is the metro station. They cross the street. They go around the block. They come straight down. And then they trace this route here. This is where the bush is. They roll to the bush and then they follow on and they eventually find the DNC. This is that train track that you guys have seen in the videos of the area. So that's all very interesting. The most interesting part might be these people were not allowed to be interviewed by the January 6th committee. Attempts by Representative Thomas Massie and Barry Loudermilk to conduct transcribed interviews of these two officers who discovered the DNC bomb have been blocked by the United States Capitol Police. They weren't allowed to be interviewed. According to the FBI, the DNC bomb sat by the foot of the park bench for 17 hours, which escaped the notice of U.S. Secret Service canine teams, the EOD technicians that roll with them, who swept the ground in anticipation of a 10:30 visit by Kamala Harris, then the vice president-elect. Video footage shows at least 2 canines swept the area after 8:30 a.m. on January the 6th. And so the question is, how did these pipe bomb sniffing counter-surveillance agents for the United States Capitol Police find something that no one else found, including specially trained dogs who have noses that are 100 times more sensitive? Really straightforward. Here's Representative Loudermilk. Why would the dog not hit on a pipe bomb that the video shows was placed the night before? He asked. To me, the only answer is the pipe bomb was not there when the dogs came by. Even worse, right? Either was inert, which according to the FBI, it wasn't. It had explosives in it, or it wasn't there. But we have the video of it being placed, so now we need to know. There are 17 hours of footage that are missing. The FBI should have that footage. The DNC should have that footage. Where's the footage showing the bomb sitting in place for 17 straight hours? And that's what is requested now. We hope members of Congress will get that from their subpoenas. Armitage believes that the bomb was placed at 8 p.m. and was retrieved overnight and then replaced again slightly before it was found on January the 6th, so the guys knew where to go find it. But whether you like it or not, there's no other way to say it. This video, I would say, removes any doubt that I can have. I don't think there is a reasonable doubt that you can plant in my mind that the Capitol Police officers who found that bomb didn't know where to find that bomb, because they found that bomb by going directly to where they found the bomb. Is that clear? Is that clean? And then it makes me ask the next question again, which I'm going to follow up on. Is this a 60-something-year-old man that the FBI was looking into days after January 6th, January 13th, January 14th of 2021? Or are we looking at a Capitol Police officer who happens to live next door to the person that we were watching? That's for you guys to decide. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I don't know what to think either. But you can imagine why people are going so hard at Tom Massie right now, who, in addition to this, is also pushing something about trying to get the Epstein files released. You remember that pesky little thing that they campaigned upon? We're going to break over and remind you to watch us over on Spotify if you guys are doing the replay. If you are listening and you're hearing me describe stuff and you can't see it, go to KyleSerafinshow.com and watch today's episode there. You will be glad you did. You can switch between audio and video when you like. Rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, YouTube.com/@Kyle Seraphin, all very good places for you to be able to watch the show. Make sure you are liking, make sure you are subscribed. Occasionally, we're going to do things that nobody else is doing, like share with you the breaking exclusive stuff. Can I play him again? I just love the way he sounds.
Breaking exclusive. Breaking exclusive.
Give it to me one more time.
Breaking exclusive.
Nobody's showing this stuff. So let's go back. What's the big problem with Tom Massie? Oh, he's a Trump hater. He's a jerk. He's out there trying to get this Epstein information. He's also the only one that's tracking this pipe bomb stuff. And if you guys have watched over on X, he's the only one that has the balls to go forward and share Steve Baker's story. Why? Because he saw that same picture that I just showed you. He's had that for a little while, clearly. Where do you think we get this stuff, guys? It goes to Congress.
Decades. That is wrong. Do not let the Senate muck this bill up. And if you're a party to that in the Senate, you are part of this cover-up that we are trying to expose. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island.
Tom Massie was not talking about the cover-up of January 6th and the pipe bomb. He's talking about the cover-up of the Epstein files, which many of us thought happened. And many of us thought for good reason, because the people that are actually running the scenario right now, that are in the position to tell us where those Epstein files are, well, why don't they just let it out? I mean, that was a day one priority. I thought it was a day one priority from the people that are there. But the more that I learned about what's going on over at the FBI, even the shenanigans about us trying to launch this live stream today. What the hell happened to those guys? And I don't have a good answer for you. I really don't. When I say some questions are legitimately questions, I actually mean that. I'm not just like asking questions. I'm asking you the question. What happened? My suspicion is two things, different things. I've shared this with Alex Jones's audience. I'll share it with my own here. I think Kash Patel lied from the beginning. He lied under oath when he did his surveillance, when he did his confirmation. He lied to me. He lied to Steve Friend. He lied to George Hill. He lied to Steve Baker. He lied to Kurt Suzdak. He lied to Steve, everybody else. Phil Kennedy. He lied to all of us. snowed us. He just wanted to be a guy who wanted to be a guy. Remember, we heard that profile the other day, which came from the New Yorker, so grain of salt. But he was just a guy who loved hockey and worried about ways to get rich. Well, if you can't get rich, you might as well just get a jet and pretend like you're rich. You can have cool girlfriends and fly all over the world and be a person of note. I think that's what happened there. Dan Bongino, he took a job he should have never said yes to, because Dan is not prepared to deal with the shenanigans and the deepness of the FBI's insidious corruption. Why would he do that? Pride, hubris, mistaken sense of duty. You come to Kyle Seraphin and say, Kyle, would you come be the FBI deputy director? The answer is absolutely freaking not. No way. I don't know how to do that job. I sure as shit can tell you that Dan Bongino doesn't know how to do that job. I don't know how to do it. You need somebody that's got 15 years maybe. You might get away with that. Usually it's somebody who has 20 years or more. 15 years, I know some people that know how to handle the FBI. They've been dealing with it. They're very, very smart operators. And their 15 years is better than 25 years from some scumbag. Sure, absolutely. But you can't fake experience. You can't fake situational knowledge. I can reach out and find out about people in about a day, who they are, what they're about. I've had members of Trump's administration ask me about specific FBI agents I've never heard of, and I get back a report on them within a couple hours. Dan can't do that. Who is he going to trust? He alienated all the guys he could trust, and he did it by going after us and siding with Julie Kelly. That's what happened. He doesn't have anybody he can trust. The people he can trust, they're fake. The people that he said he had sources that were going to tell us who the pipe bomber was, they're not real. They never materialized. So now he's covering for something because his reputation, just like the retired FBI guys, it is stuck on the FBI's reputation. And that's how the FBI always gets you. They say, if you're not part of us, who will believe you? And if we're discredited, then you're discredited. How will you ever work again if you worked for this agency when you said it's corrupt? Well, it turns out I'm doing just fine. You know, with some hiccups and some road bumps. What happened to these guys? I'm going to go back and just remember you. This is Patel versus Patel. What happened to this guy?
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school. Yeah. We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said, this is not getting out.
Okay, so the FBI is not going to let the black book out. So what if you made a commitment that you would make sure that the black book got out? Why are we even having a debate right now in Congress and having a vote with Donald Trump hating on MTG and going after Tom Massie and claiming that his marriage is some problem? Like, first of all, it's none of our damn business. And coming from somebody who's been, divorced twice, married 3 times, and cheated on all of his wives, and probably not the best guy to be taking that shot. It's a Trump kind of thing to do. But what about the guy that's in the office? Didn't he promise us that he was going to get the black book out?
Well, the Epstein black book, like on day one. On day one, roll out the black book.
So will you work with me on this issue so we know who worked with Jeffrey Epstein in building these sex trafficking rings?
Absolutely, Senator. Child sex trafficking has no place in the United States of America, and I will do everything, if confirmed as FBI director, to make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened in the past.
Okay, that's a good promise. How did I know that they were not going to ever give it to us? How did I know that we were not going to get the truth about January 6th? It's easy. I just listened to the official, unofficial spokesperson of Dan Bongino, who, is in concert with Kash Patel. And here she is.
I also don't care about the Epstein information. I don't care about those files. I think it's irrelevant. I don't care about those files. I think it's irrelevant. I think it's irrelevant. No one is going to be charged. Everyone got away with it. No one is going to be charged. Everyone got away with it. And I would much rather dig into January 6th. Much rather dig into.
Like that. You've got to no.
Wait, you'd rather jig into January 6th? What you'd rather do is you'd rather poke holes that don't actually exist and make up things that are slanderous about Kyle Seraphin and Steve Baker, because that's what you're into. That's the official position of the FBI. You have been captured by the agency that you used to claim you were against. But here's the thing. Democrats love government. So it's not surprising that a major Democrat donor would love government and would back the play of government and would give money to the person who ended up imprisoning the J6ers. That makes sense. What about this guy? Didn't he do a 180? Black book, day one. or there's nothing to see here.
Stating there is no incriminating client list. Why was this July 7th memorandum unsigned?
Would you prefer I've used AutoPen?
Well, why was it unsigned?
The memorandum had the insignia of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and in our...
Right, I know. This is the memorandum. Do you guys remember this? Came from Axios, of all places. Exclusive. DOJ and FBI conclude that Epstein had no client list and he died by suicide. Well, who believed that? Nobody that's in the FBI believed that. That's at the top until they were told that they had to, and I don't know why they did it. President Trump's Justice Department and FBI concluded there's no evidence. Convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, that he kept a client list, or that he was murdered. And they did so via this memo, which we can remember. It was unsigned. That's what Dick Durbin's asking about. They said a couple of really interesting things. Our systemic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was no credible evidence found that Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So why is there a big fight about it? Why did this guy flip his lid?
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Yeah, that's hard to believe, isn't it? Meanwhile, attorney representing Blaze Bomber adds more in a statement to NBC News, says his client has been falsely accused in social media accounts of being involved in the placement of the bombs outside the DNC and the RNC buildings on the evening of January 5th, 2021. Julie Kelly celebrates and says this is very bad news for social media influencers who have promoted this story as accurate. Tom Massie even walking back sensational claims. I don't see that. Tom Massie knows more than this lady does. A lot more. You know who else is really nervous about the same thing that Julie Kelly's not interested in? Those Epstein files? Mike Johnson, a.k.a. Smithers. Why? What national security concerns could you have? They just told you that there was nobody else involved. So what sort of national security concerns could there be? I don't know, but he talked about it yesterday.
All right. Number 5, national security concerns, okay? The discharge requires the Attorney General to release within 30 days, quote, classified information to the maximum extent possible. This ignores the principle that declassification should always rest, and always has rested, with the agency that originated the intelligence. Why? So that they can protect their critical sources and methods. It is incredibly dangerous to demand that officials or employees of the DOJ declassify materials that originated in other agencies, in intelligence agencies.
Oh. We can't tell you because we're so concerned that we have to protect the sources and methods of these very cherished organizations, which 5 seconds ago we were screaming about suing because they went and took our records, our phone calls. They were doing things that we thought was illegal, immoral, or unethical. And we actually built in a provision for that CR so that we can sue them for $500,000 per instance where they actually did the job that they're supposed to do using the sources and methods that they have. What am I showing here on the screen? I'm showing person of interest 1, the pipe bomber, and I'm showing the person that the Blaze has said they have a gate match analysis to that person of interest 1. And who did she lawyer up with? Yeah, a guy who used to be the general counsel for the Department of Homeland Security, like a deep state actor. Of course, who else would you go to? Julie Kelly refers to this guy as a DC heavy hitter. He has no experience in defamation. He has no experience in criminal prosecution, for what I could tell. I don't know what his job is. Why is he a DC heavy hitter? Imagine that. The swamp comes out to protect the swamp. Can we ask questions about like why that is? You know what I didn't see from Shawnee Kirchhoff's attorney? Because I read his statement. What he didn't say is we hope that the FBI will solve this case forthwith and exonerate our client because it'll be obvious. Except Steve Baker just dropped a video on you that shows that the Capitol Police were involved. You guys want to know how you know they were? Because they went and found the bombs, and they went direct in, and they found bombs randomly in the entirety of Washington, D.C., in the Capitol area in under 12 minutes. So for anyone who's asking, well, what's the connection to Capitol Police? The connection is the Capitol Police know where to look. And now it starts becoming far less, wild pie in the sky coincidence. It's just a coincidence. There's just a couple million residences, and you just happen to be right next door to the other one where the person was that they were being watched. Got it. It's just a coincidence. And this could be a 60-something-year-old man. Could be. You tell me. Again, the same people that are mad about sources and methods that want to go and protect the Epstein list, they seem all on board with not getting the rest of this information out. Why are all members of Congress not demanding that bombs and this case be solved when bombs were placed outside of one of those two party headquarters that they could have been at? It could have been their lives on the line. Nope. They're going to instead go out there and yell that the FBI did something illegal, immoral, unethical, but at the same time, also, we have to protect their sources and methods when it comes to Epstein, and we're not going to talk out about this particular thing. This is how I know it's theater. Here's Lindsey Graham. He's outraged. He wants millions of dollars.
My phone records were seized as part of this. I am tired of this. The third leading DOJ lawyer left DOJ in Washington to work for Alvin Bragg in Manhattan. What was that all about? Fannie Willis's boyfriend spent a day in the White House talking to the Jack Smith people. What was that all about? I think this was worse than Watergate, an effort to destroy President Trump, charge him with crimes that are just ridiculous, and come after people like me. I'm not going to put up with this crap anymore. I'm going to sue. I'm going to sue the hell out of these people.
How much are you going to sue them for?
Tens of millions of dollars, because I went to Fannie Willis in Atlanta, spent $1.2 million with that bullshit in Atlanta. Now I find out they spy on my phone records as a senator and a private citizen, chairman of the Judiciary Committee in 2023.
The man wants millions, tens of millions of dollars for the inconvenience of someone looking into his phone. But we need to protect the sources and methods, right? Remember, we got to do sources and methods. We need to make sure that we assure that these agencies can continue doing the things that they're doing. What a tough guy he is there. So Mike Johnson was concerned. He had 5 reasons, including national security, why you should not release the Epstein files, why that bill shouldn't be passed. It turns out that didn't actually go the way that he thought it would. Here is the actual vote in the House, which happened yesterday. And there it is, the total. 427, time remaining.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Kaboom! And then it goes to the Senate. What did the Senate do? Immediately, even before they even got it.
There an objection? Without objection, so ordered.
The Senate has now passed the Epstein bill as soon as it comes over.
There an objection?
Okay, so they passed it, and Mike Johnson's probably thrilled about that, right? It's like, listen, the will of the people, that's what our job is. We're here, 427 to 1, and the Senate moved it forward. Goes to Donald Trump's desks. We should be feeling pretty good about that, right? No, Mike Johnson actually wanted not that. He wanted it to be passed by all the Republicans and the Democrats, but he wanted it to be then amended in the Senate to what? Cut it or neuter it? Tom Massie warned. They didn't do it. Mike Johnson's not happy.
Any reaction to Leader Thune seeing the bill without adding amendments or changing it?
I'm deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think I've been at the state dinner. I don't know. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptively. It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
So do you think he may veto it? You say you spoke to the president?
I'm not saying that.
Is he supportive of it in its current form?
We both have concerns about it, so we'll see.
We're out of the way here. We got to keep going, and we have concerns about it. Why do you have concerns about it? I already heard he trafficked to nobody. You guys remember? We have an FBI director. He did this under oath.
You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
in the files?
In the case file.
Director Patel,
Sorry. I just laugh every time these guys go, look, we've been thoroughly briefed on the nuggets and the tendrils and the details of what we've seen, the things that we're able to see, even though we're the top guys in this agency. Like, we know most of the things that they let us know. And so, you know, he trafficked to no one. You know who wasn't buying that? Tom Massie. You know who's on the shit list? I don't know any other way to call it. Tom Massie.
Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007, and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to the Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to the Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one...
And so on and so forth. But remember, the FBI already went on record. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. There's nothing to worry about there. So why the fight? Axios said, MAGA influencers, Patel and Bongino, have been the loudest voices touting the conspiracy theories. They've also been some of the loudest ones talking about the pipe bomb. And oddly enough, they no longer have anything to say about either. We haven't seen a response from the FBI's rapid response team. We have not seen anyone go out and say that the Steve Baker videos are fake, they're doctored, they're inaccurate, that they show something that's not true. And they're more than happy to run to Fox and go get that done. You know what we haven't seen in a while? We haven't seen a flight. So maybe something else is going on there. But you got to imagine this is stressful week. It's been time for this song, isn't it? Guys, if you haven't downloaded this, you probably can over on YouTube. Put it out on YouTube. Yeah, we'll punch it up on the YouTube channel for the members. We'll put it over on Locals again. If you guys haven't seen it, it's out there. But I love this song. This is super catchy. In theory, we could still have a sense of humor in this country. I would like to say that we can have a good time and say something funny. What do my attorneys call it? My signature tongue-in-cheek style. I do have a really sarcastic delivery. If you guys haven't noticed this is just kind of how I roll. I'm a sarcastic guy. Also, I look at this thing, and as one of you mentioned, I would rather see actual theater, like with real trained actors, because maybe they would actually be able to sell this BS story to me instead of whatever this nonsense is that we're seeing. You're going to tell me that the Capitol Police were not involved, even though they went direct to threat and found the bombs? I mean, just don't lie to me. You could do better than that. I need you to be better than that. I require that my liars have a more convincing story. You couldn't sell this to a publisher. They'd be like, well, wouldn't they have found it out in a couple of days? You'd be like, no. Here's the best part. They actually continue to double down on it for 5 years and offer a $500,000 reward. And then when everybody goes, hey, we can see what you're doing, you guys are full of crap. Then you go, surprise, it's a training exercise. Why do you think they went after Joe Hanneman? Why do you think they went after Steve Baker? Why do you think they're mad about what Kyle Seraphin and Steve Friend have to say? Why do you think that Garrett O'Boyle is back to work, but Steve Friend, who was on an episode with me and Joe Hanneman, is not? And he's being considered for rehire. even though he has a signed agreement from the Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America saying that it's coming his way. He's supposed to be paid right now, and none of my boys have gotten their back pay lump sums. So where the hell's my friend's money? Guys, you freaking liars. And all I'm asking you is this guy 60-something years old? Or are you looking at the same person on the screen? It's a perfectly reasonable question for regular people to look and say, by a certain age, you end up with a certain amount of salt in your muzzle. Men, you know what I'm talking about. I'm already starting to get the gray. I got the pepper in here. I don't worry about it because who cares? I'm a grown man. I already have a wife. I got some babies. I'm probably too old to be having more babies, but I don't care. I'm going to have some salt. That's what happens. That's a really dark beard there, and it looks disturbingly familiar to me based on looking on the screen here. You guys answer that question. Let's shut it down for today, but I did bring you some humor, as we do. Make sure you're liking us on Rumble. It boosts us on the leaderboard, whatever the heck that means. I don't know what it means, but we're on the leaderboard, and we've been on the leaderboard 6 days in a row, 7 days in a row now, because of your likes. The likes are what kicks us up. We're the smallest account on there. So make it so if you would. Like us over on YouTube. You guys are great about it. The number of people that are watching on YouTube that know how to use the like button, fantastic. If you're new, if you've never seen our program before, subscribe. We'd love to have you along for the ride. It's good fun. And if you're listening somewhere and you're like, hey, I can't see anything Serafin's talking about, go to Kyle Seraphin Show, 3words.com. Kyle Seraphin Show.com. That's where you go find us. That's Spotify. It'll give you a direct link. You can download Spotify or not, and you'll be able to do audio and video. It is a superior listening experience. Regardless, make sure you like it. It's a big deal in so much as it's the freest way to support us. And then if you want to leave a comment, I read most of them. I'm going to try to do some of that today as well. All right. Should we do some humor, as is our style? All right. I got two comedic pieces. I'm going to save one because it's a song, and I've done enough songs for today. How about blue collar, the people who make this country work? Real specific breed of people with calluses on their hands that do real work for a living. Not sit at a podcast desk like I do today, but, you know, like swing a shovel or move earth around or build structures so that people can live in them. This is a blue collar interview. This is how you get hired. If you guys are looking like, hey, man, I'd like to get into construction. What's going to get me the job? This will get you the job.
All right, let's get this over with. You want to work blue collar. First question. You comfortable working 60 hours a week?
60? I didn't realize this was a part-time job.
Okay. Next question. The safety man catches you not using proper lifting technique for heavy stuff. What do you respond with?
Tell him his mom used proper lifting technique for heavy stuff last night.
That's word for word what I've written down. Okay? All right. Fill in the blank. Once you become a heavy equipment operator, you become...
better than everyone else on the job site.
Hands down.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, cancel my appointments the rest of the day. Well, then make appointments and cancel them. Especially that guy with the Honda Ridgeline. Call him again just so he knows he really didn't get the job.
Ridgeline, you didn't get the job.
Sorry about that. All right, your manager comes out and starts critiquing you on how you're supposed to do things.
Tell him if he wants it done his way, he can come out and do it himself.
Have you done this before? Your coworker Steven comes up and tells you he has proof you violated safety protocol and he's going to go tell management. How do you respond?
I tell him this is exactly why his wife and kids left him.
Oh, that's why his wife and kids left him. It hurts. It's true, though. Steven, do better. We need that. All right. That was it for today. I hope you guys had fun. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God knows what will be dropping out of the tree or the bush where the pipe bomb used to be and then it got moved to. You guys know what I'm talking about. Have a great day. God bless you. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.